Hi, this is Alba Weinman and welcome to my YouTube channel. Now my YouTube channel is not usually about this. It's usually about hypnosis sessions, but today it's a little bit different. I wanted to give you a glimpse of a reading that I had recently here in New Zealand. Now I've been in New Zealand traveling for about 3 weeks now, and I've met the most amazing people. This place is just breathtaking. The views are amazing. And I've had time with my travels to meet just great people and to just soak in this very, very relaxing energy from this country. And one of the things that I did is I spent about 10 days in the home of my friend and colleague, Blair Styra. Blair Styra is a channel. He channels spirit named Tabaash. He's been doing it for about 35 years. And I met Blair about 5 years ago when I first became a hypnotist doing QHHT with Dolores Cannon. Dolores Cannon at that time was bringing him to her conferences and was traveling all around the United States, having him channel Tabaash. She loved Blair, and they get along really great. And that's how I met him. I had my first reading with him about 5 years ago, and I was blown away by the accuracy of the reading. I've never really had readings before. I'm not really into mediums and psychics too much, but this one really blew me away. And every year, maybe sometimes twice a year, I will get a session with Blair channeling Tabaash, and Tabaash has been like my life coach. So for those who come to me for hypnosis, I go to Tabaash for just getting a little bit more of information about what I should be doing with my life and what's going on. And he's so accurate, it's amazing. So this time, I came to New Zealand to do some sessions here, and I stayed in Blair's home. And what happened was that we did a swap session. I did a regression for him. He wanted to do a past life regression. He hadn't had one since Dolores Cannon had done one on him. So we did another session, and you'll see it on YouTube. And then he did a reading for me while I was in his home. And it was a wonderful reading. It was very private. It's an hour reading. When you do a session with Tabaash, it is an hour. But most of it was about my own personal life. So you're going to be seeing this reading, but it's very, very chopped up, because whenever he talks about a family member or a situation that I'm dealing with at home, that gets taken out. It's my business, nobody else's. So, but the reading was really amazing. I wanted you to at least feel what it's like to have a reading with him. Tabaash, he is a spirit. He lived about 5,000 years ago in Samaria. He was just a normal guy, and when he ascended, he realized that he can be more help to humanity. So this is how he is a service to us. And I recommend him highly recommend him. And I don't do that with many people, but I highly recommend him if you want someone to do a reading with you. He does it over Skype, and you can reach him at info@tabaash.com. So without further ado, here's my reading.
Alba Weinman, as I live and breathe. What is this thing here? Okay.
So I could hear you.
I'll give you a hug.
Just don't turn it off.
What, you?
Yeah.
Come on. Turned off. Now think about this, because this is where you're at this particular point. It's your vibrations that are more important to people than who you are as an emotional human being. And it's the same, with Blair and me channeling through him. So people are really resonating to your vibration, because the main body of your life is your work. Then the people that you're involved with are people that are aware of you as a vibration. And it's a very, very different set of collective dynamics when you get involved in that, because what it does, it actually disassociates yourself from human nature in lots of ways, because you're able to be a better observer of the people that you deal with. And I've watched you sort of training yourself up since you started doing all of this to become a lot more empathic, a lot more psychic, a lot more alert and aware, just by being able to be that observer. And, as we've talked in the past, you've had to learn how to draw some lines, and what you've been doing basically, see. And of course, the strength of your work and the body of it's going to keep expanding. So as that energy keeps expanding, what it's doing is actually detaching you even more from, what's actually going on, around the planet, because you realize it's really important what I'm doing. So I don't actually want to be involved in the world. I'm involved in the work I'm doing.
Right.
The world's around me and it's just doing what it's actually doing. I don't have to be impacted, by what's going on politically or economically or whatever. I'm focusing on what I'm doing, as we've said, turning more lights on. And as you keep turning more lights on, then you realize that, well, what I'm seeing as the soul of my woman's body is actually very different from what other people are seeing, in regards to how you are participating in the world. Whereas, if you think about it from the spiritual perspective, you totally stand autonomously in your life, and without any of the human attachments. You're just, as I say, that God in your body. But of course, the human nature, with its emotions and its feelings and its desires, as I said before, it starts creating all these circumstances which get people over-involved in things. And this is what is interesting with the work you're doing, because often it triggers off stuff that people have right at the bottom of the pot, and now it's on boil and it has to be brought up, and then they have a reaction to it or a response to it or whatever. And so it's never about once that's done, your work is over. Once that you brought something to the surface with people, your work continues with them, because you've actually got a vibrational link with those souls, and you're actually working with them.
Wow.
Even though your human nature has said, thanks for the session, bye. But your soul is actually keeping on working with them. The same way when people come to see me and Blair, as I say, we work with those souls, even though they may have a session a year ago. And people have even said, oh, it's really weird, I just keep feeling you around all the time. Or they might say, oh, Blair keeps coming into my dreams. And I said, it's because we're working with you.
I get a lot of that.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm in everybody's
Yeah, totally. So what you're doing is you're monitoring. So you're monitoring, all your clients. You think about all your clients. Obviously, you're not, you know when to relieve yourself at some point from some on a subconscious level. So it's not like all your clients. It's more like, okay, it's almost like, everyone has a number, and they just come in and sit down, and your soul is doing whatever it does, you see. And then it's like, okay, well, I don't need to line with you now. You sorted whatever needs to be sorted. And then that's when that energy falls away, and then, someone else takes their place.
Wow.
And this is interesting, because that's how collective consciousness really works. And not just in the work that yourself and myself are doing and others, but it's to do with how life really works. People are forever working with each other all the time, supporting each other all the time. But, for souls like yourself and Blair and others, you're accelerating that vibration. So therefore, you need to look at something, bang, it's going to be there.
Yeah.
And of course the best thing to do is to straight away pick that thread up and follow that through. And not think, oh yeah, I'll get around to that. We'll get back to that later. It's more, okay, if I've created the reality that's in my vibration, then let's just sit with this for a moment.
Yeah.
Because the moment you decide to sit with it, you realize it will not be complicated. It will always be easy, because that's the time to deal with it. And it gets complicated when you go, oh, let's put it over there. I'll get back to that later on. So it just sits there, and it's like, and it's like it grows mold, and so it becomes something, more than is necessary.
Wow.
And then invariably, you go to face it, and it's like, oh God, I wish I dealt with this earlier on. So that's why I'm a firm believer in, if something is in your energies straight away, then straight away consider, okay, right now, what's the simplest thing I could do? So you don't have to do the major thing. So what's the simplest thing I could do? By taking that first step, you've done something. You've engaged, you've initiated the energy.
Yeah.
And then also at the same token, what's occurred when you've done that, because as you know, being multidimensional, you've got all these other aspects of yourself that are working with you. And as they work with you, you've done your part by acknowledging, going, okay, yeah, got it, thank you, this is what I can do with it. And then once you've done that, then those other aspects, they'll step in and say, okay, no, well, they won't say that, but you'll get a feeling that it feels like something else, some other part of me is now dealing with it, and that's absolutely true.
Wow.
But then it's also about recognizing when that other part of you that's dealt with it has completed that, and then it might hand it back to you and say, okay, right, now here's a new form, here's a new shape. Now you need to do something from this. And that's where people often freak out because they think, oh, I'm not qualified, I don't know, that whole I don't know thing. But of course, if your other self has handed it back to you, it's done that because it knows that you know. And that's where it will not do that otherwise. It's impossible for something higher than you to give something to you that you can't cope with. I mean, if you think about your life, you've been faced a whole lot of stuff that your life gave to you, and you coped with it. And even though mentally, physically, emotionally, etc., it was hard, you found ways when you just stood still for a moment and just got things into perspective. It's when people bounce around and panic, that creates more issues as such.
Yeah.
And so for yourself, it's about, I've always been able to stand still, even though I might have flipped the scales a bit. I've eventually stood still and thought, okay, and then you've always attracted towards you an idea or a feeling or an insight, and then in your ability, you've just taken action.
Yeah.
And so, it's been an interesting training ground for you over the last couple of years, because what you needed to do is you needed to solidify your position. Having solidified your position, you stand more autonomously, but more powerfully with the power of Source. But also, too, as a human being, because you're just channeling these vibrations through you consistently. So if you're in a position of great strength and great power, then it makes it so much easier for you to actually feel the vibration and the energy. At this time in history, because change is the constant, then, there's a natural being thrown around a little bit at this particular point. It's like the wind around the house today, and so occasionally you feel the impact of that.
Yeah.
And of course, when you feel the impact of it, one doesn't need to say, oh, what do I need to do to adjust to this? It's more a matter, okay, I'll just sort of lean into the wind a bit here, or just make sure my foot in here, or whatever. Because human nature dives too much into, oh, what's wrong and what do I need to do more of? I think, and this is an important point I'm going to make for you, it's more about what do I need to do less of? Because less is more. And often what you don't do is what gives you a solution or the feeling you're wanting. And I think humans can get very complicated in thinking too much or doing too much or considering things too much. Where it's just about, just stop doing that.
Is that why I'm here this week?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because it just allows you just to stand still and catch your breath. And of course, the energy of this house and is just, it's a bliss energy. So it just puts you into a calm vibration. But, when I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about, the collaboration that we're doing with our work, and here and over the States and, in South America and other places that we'll do in the future. Well, what's interesting, it's like this, with Geraldine, with Antonio, it's like this collaboration of many aspects that represent all. So it's not just, the four of you in your vibrations. If you come with a crowd, that's the best way to put it. So you've got your people, Blair's got his people, Geraldine's got hers, and Antonio's got his. So you've got this massive crowd of collectivity that's actually occurring. And of course, so this comes in many different realms. So you're dealing with multidimensional aspects of yourselves as individuals. So that's some of the crowd that you work with. But then you've got energies from Source that are what you would call your guides. So they are gathering here as well. So when you get, the four of you, so the room is massively crowded. We need a huge theater, to bring all of this together.
A bigger bus.
Yeah, something like that. So and of course, everyone's people, as we put it, they're all collaborating, and to look at how can we pull all this together to encourage, because it's a collective experience and a vibration. And so now, shall I say Hara? That's absolutely true. And this is an example of what happens when the energy isn't in order enough. And it's when we were having all that microphone problem in San Francisco.
What was that all about?
Well, it was the energies, all the people, all the vibrations and things like that. It was still trying to find the right formula and settle into the right energy. So, of course, it hadn't quite gelled yet at that point. But as you discover, too, when you collaborate on a subconscious level, without even having conversations with people, who you're working with, you realize that, say, something you said or done, suddenly Geraldine follows it through,
Right.
picks up the thread,
Yeah.
without even knowing that's what
Right.
she was going to do.
Yeah.
And then I'll pick up what she's, and then there's
She
only...
said the same thing you said without even having heard it.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what happens, and that's collective energy in practice. So you get this consciousness that's occurring. It's like, let's just say it's like one big mind all working together. And then, but looking at all the different ways that things need to be said. But it's that one collectivity that's important. I call it thinking as God, as opposed to just the individual humanity.
I keep being told that I'm just at the beginning of stuff. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put it differently. Imagine like there is no beginning, there's no middle, there's no end. It's just where you're standing.
Okay.
And obviously there are degrees of energy that you deal with every position that you're in. So over the last few years, what you've had to be is to be adapted to the mental energy of what you're working with, the physiology of it, the spiritual aspect of it. So there's been this enormous sense of adaptation on all levels, but not just from the point of your personal experiences, but your physiology has had to also train itself into being able to adapt to what you're working with, because you're not just working with what you're pulling through you when you're aligned. As people are going through what they're experiencing, they're emitting a particular frequency. So it's like being in the fallout of that energy.
Is that why I've had to work less?
Oh, absolutely. Because imagine it's be like standing in the middle of Chernobyl when it exploded.
Every day?
Yeah, every day. So imagine 12 hours of that.
Yeah, but I used to be able to do it. Why is it that it's changed?
It's changed because the original vibration of that was important for you to accustom yourself quite quickly to those vibrations and energies.
Okay.
And so it wasn't necessary for you to maintain, and you couldn't have maintained that sort of energy. So gradually what occurs is that you find a more natural rhythm, which is what you're involved in now.
Yeah.
So you just got to be aware of how you are orchestrating all the vibrations and the energies.
I noticed that when I booked to go to Australia, and then in the morning it was like, I can't do that. I canceled everything.
Yes, yep.
It was like warning sirens went
Yeah,
off.
yeah. You see your soul's going, no. And when you listen to that quiet no, then you recognize, okay, that's my high nature, directing me, which is the whole idea why you develop your connection with your high nature, so that you get these signals.
Right.
And then human nature steps in, not with you necessarily, but with other people. Obviously, how do I know that?
Yes.
And then they would just do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then regret what steps they've taken. And yet, when you just know something is right, you just step in there.
Yeah.
Like when you started talking about working in Cusco, and they just thought, absolutely. It's just this absolute sense of no resistance, nothing like that.
Yeah.
It was just, yep, let's do that. We will organize this. And otherwise, it would have been, I'll have to think about this, and to see if I can weigh this out.
Yeah, and I felt like I had to wait, and I always call it the escalator. I have to wait stuck for the escalator to come.
Yep.
Where I didn't feel it, and then all of a sudden, when Antonio asked me again, it was like, yes, okay, I'm aligned.
Yeah, totally. And so the alignment of that, it's going to be fascinating, actually.
Really?
Because of the frequencies that are going to be made available. But I mean, for all of you who are going to participate in this, But if you think about it from, the four of you, it's all about your development.
Yeah.
That's why you've got to think about the steps that you're taking at this particular point in your history is part of your development. There's like major development that's occurring within yourselves as individuals in the way that you are developing as spiritual beings, but also as human beings, and how you're going to direct your human nature in different ways. And so being positioned, if we'll put it that way, in places like Peru, which has an enormous alignment going on with certain forces beyond Earth, and so there's I mean, always has been this, you know, it's been utilized enormously.
Have I had history there?
In South America? Oh,
Yeah.
of course, absolutely, yeah. And but not necessarily as an Earthian person,
Oh.
you know. So
okay.
because, you know, there's been a lot of correlating between Earth and the Pleiades, you know, in South America for, you know, from the time the energies were really created and they first started to come here.
Wow.
So there's been a lot of interaction that you yourself have had, where, that's a good word to put it, would be a bit like being a pioneer, you know, in the first years when the Pleiadians started working with the Earth vibrations and looking at what they were wanting to create. And so you had a lot to do with the seeding and the experiment and the science of what was actually going on.
Wow.
You know, so, and that's, you know, why it's interesting too, because in the work that you're doing, it's almost like a furthering of some of that work, you know, by being able to draw information out, basically, see. And so because you were feeding information into some of the early human beings, and also when they started to do experiments in regards to creating different human life forms by mixing, you know, Pleiadian energy and Earthian energies and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of early experimenting, you know, that went on, and cloning and all sorts of things, sort of trying to discover, you know, what do we do with these species.
But you know, will I ever get to a point where I feel more like connected? Because I always feel very human, not very airy-fairy. Will I ever get more of that?
No, I mean, you see, you're misunderstanding your human feelings.
Yeah.
And you are actually completely connected.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. But the energy of it, it's like, I'm grounded.
Okay.
And I hear what you're saying. It's like, I should be getting more messages, and I should be feeling this and hearing this and all that sort of stuff. And I said, look, you want to go and set up a stall in the Santa Monica Pier? Fine. You know, if that's what you want to do, you could go and do that. Or are you going to be able to be God, projecting through the dynamics of this human woman's body, be quite logical and practical and secure and all that sort of stuff.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, and that's you being God.
Okay.
You know? And who said God was airy-fairy?
Okay, well,
You know?
I'm just putting it out there because...
But you are perceptive, and you do get, you know, feelings and things like this.
Yeah, I am connected.
Yeah.
I feel in the last couple of years I've been able to see things now in my regressions, and I don't know, and the vibrations are so different now.
Yeah.
I actually feel like even my teeth vibrate differently.
Yeah, everything about you is vibrating differently, but you know, it's an interesting place that you get to when you become God very consciously. You simply get into a position, excuse me, of being.
Yeah.
And in that state of being, you have a state of knowing.
Okay.
So all that is just there.
Okay.
It doesn't come from you guys anymore. It doesn't come from outside influence or so funny feelings or fluffy stuff.
Okay.
It's just there.
Okay.
And it always is. God is quite practical and logical. You know, it's just, that's how it is.
So that groundedness is who I am.
Totally, yeah.
Okay.
So that is you as God.
Okay.
You know, there's your groundedness. And when you look at people who are like that, solid in their nature, you know, and you just get a sense of, oh, they know. And they never get into fluffy stuff. And you look at people who get into fluffy stuff, you know, who are purporting to channel this, that, and whatever. They're not grounded.
Okay.
So they're just, you know, going into lots of human nature stuff, basically.
Okay.
But they're also coming at things purely from their ego.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to be recognized. When you need to be consistently validated,
Yeah.
you know, then, you know, you're not solid in your God nature.
And how is my dad helping me?
He's aligning your vibrations, monitoring your vibrations to assure that they are aligned to certain aspects of yourself that are feeding you, because they're aligned, of course, to higher consciousness. So how shall we look at this? So, okay, you've got this energy that aligns to your higher nature. Your higher nature is aligned to source, to other aspects of your multidimensional vibrations. And then, is it the other way around? Okay, sorry. Okay, so you're so confusing. You're aligned to these multidimensional vibrations. Multidimensional vibrations are aligned to your higher nature. Higher nature is aligned to source. So what your dad does is he watches the circuitry. So he's making sure that the circuitry is really clear. And by the time it gets to your vibration, he's just really watching to make sure that your personal physiology is nicely aligned and balanced.
Well, I thought I was going to have a heart attack this last year.
Yeah, but that wasn't really happening. That was a mass of energy.
Oof, that was scary.
Yeah. But, everything was fine.
Really?
It's just, that's an interesting thing that you mentioned, because lots of people experience that at the same time.
Really?
So that's a lot to do with the shifting of vibrations.
Okay.
So people Blair did. He went to the hospital, got an ACG.
Really?
It
Scared me a lot.
Yeah. When he asked me, I said, it's fine. Energy shifts, but then your human nature, kicks in, and as you say, the fear.
Right.
So it's always good. I know it's safe to Blair, look, it's fine, but if you want to get it checked out, you do what you need to do.
Right.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Oh, you want to
Shut this off?
shut that off? I'll give you a hug.
Yeah.
Love you.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
We'll work again.
Oh, of course we will. We'll be seeing you. Yeah.
Okay.
And bring Blair back. Okay, bye for now.
Okay, bye.